Good morning and welcome to Matters of Substance, our podcast. Today, you have your hosts, Kaitlyn Griffin and Carley Samayoa.
Hello, Kaitlyn.
Good morning. And today we are back with Meghan Buell. Meghan Buell is the founder and board president of the Transgender Resource, Education, and Enrichment Services, also known as TREES, Inc. And this is a transgender educational nonprofit organization. Meghan is a local, regional, and national leader in the transgender community, and her pronouns are she and her. My pronouns are also she and her.
And mine as well, she and her.
So welcome back, Meghan. Thank you so much for coming back. The last time we saw you was, I believe, in April, and we had a great discussion. So we talked about bringing you back, and now we are just really excited, to catch up with you and see how things have been going, and just to give us some updates about what's been going on.
Well, thank you for inviting me back, and I'm glad to be here to continue the conversation, because I think the conversation needs to continue to happen to help people understand, trans identities.
So I wasn't able to be here for the last episode, which is kind of a bummer, because I know that it was a great episode. I did listen to it. And so maybe just for people who are new listening today, could we just kind of give a brief overview of what the discussion centered around so that they're on the same page as they're listening? I think that would be helpful. Nothing too long.
Yes. So in our last episode with Meghan, we spoke about trans visibility and how people who maybe don't have a lot of knowledge or know too many people in the transgender community can become more of an ally, or just more educated, so that we can assist people. And we also want to increase inclusivity in the community, and how people can go about doing that, how to properly, just kind of have a new way of introducing yourself to people, and making sure that you remain open to the fact that we don't want to assume someone's gender or gender identity. And Meghan spoke about that, and really just kind of what's going on in the community, what Meghan is doing to create more safe places for folks, and to make sure that there is somewhere for those in the transgender community to go and feel safe and have a welcoming environment to be in. And so we know that she is primarily in South Bend right now, but her efforts are local, regional, and national, as we also talked about her trans visibility education workshop, or it was a presentation here in Porter County, which seemed to have been pretty well received. So those were some of the topics we discussed, and I think when we left off, we opened the door a little bit about how youth, substance use, and mental health is severely impacted, especially due to the treatment of transgender youth and adolescents.
I found it very interesting when I was listening, Meghan. You said a line that I think was just super impactful, and I think can kind of lead us into the conversation here today. You said, anytime a community becomes more inclusive, it improves the chance that we are going to save lives.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
That's an amazing statement.
But it's kind of a common sense statement. If you think about people in their communities feeling part of that community, belonging to that community, and being active in that community, then there's less chance that they're going to be sitting at home afraid to come out into the community. And that being scared and not being, not knowing if you're going to be, welcome, causes a lot of mental anguish, and that could lead to, as we talk about, substance abuse and suicidal ideations as well.
I was researching about 2 weeks ago. We had the LGBTQ outreach of Porter County here as guests. And one of the things I was researching was substance use connected to the LGBTQ community. And the rates are they're pretty significantly higher, substance use, mental health challenges. And like you said, I think it has to do with helping people feel included. And maybe you could speak a little bit more on how people can do that, how they can make sure that the LGBTQ community is feeling included, how we can offer safe spaces, things like that. I thought that was really important when we talked about it with the outreach group as well. And I'd love to just hear your perspective too.
Yeah, I mean, being queer, being part of the LGBTQ plus community comes with it a lot of stigma and cultural barriers. And I mean, really, the first way to improve and enrich lives is to break down those barriers so that people feel good about themselves. But until that happens, there's a high reliance on substance abuse, whether that be, prescription drugs, illegal drugs, alcohol, smoking. All of these are ways to ease a person's, anguish, struggle, strife for finding comfort. And, we can address what's on the surface, but what we really need to do is get down to the root causes. And that's the non-inclusive nature in so many communities that draws, or pushes people in this direction. One of the things we're doing at our location in South Bend, the tree house, of course, because we're treesing, is we're offering non-alcoholic craft brews as a way to introduce folks who are relying on the alcohol, but maybe like beer, to a non-alcoholic option that could, almost act like a placebo, and they can feel like they're drinking a beer, and maybe that beer helps them relax, but not with the alcoholic effects. So finding ways to wean them off of the need for the alcohol through other methods is going to help save those lives and make their lives better. But, I mean, it really comes down to whether that person feels safe and comfortable. And for so many, it's the coming out process is not just one day, one and done, and you go on. It's a lifelong journey. And you have to really come out to yourself first and be comfortable in your own skin so you can take on the challenges of the world. For myself, it wasn't until I had that moment where I came out to myself and I fully accepted who I was that I could live authentically. And my dependence and need for drinking went away because I was no longer needing to fake an identity. I could, be true and honest and authentic in my own skin. And I didn't need that. It's a hard place to get to. And there's a lot of work and a lot of community support that can help individuals get there themselves. And you'll see a dramatic change in the need for, substances.
And I think something that we discussed in our podcast with the outreach group was that I think there is such a misunderstanding of substance and mental health use among individuals in the LGBTQ community or the transgender community because people think they have problems because of their identity, but that's not what it is. It really comes down to how they're being treated, what is happening to them because people don't understand how to just, be accepting and show kindness and love. It's the side effects of either a community or whether it's their family or people, in environments that they have to be in every day, like school or if it's work. I think that's kind of like a phenomenon to people. It is not necessarily because somebody identifies as, something other than how they were born. It's because of what they face in their daily life that leads to substances and numbing and maybe, and it might not, and if someone already, no matter what their gender identity is, if they already kind of have a lack of coping skills or healthier coping skills, which can happen to anyone, that also will increase the likelihood that they, become dependent on a substance or struggle with mental health disorders. I think that's something that people don't fully understand yet.
Oh no, you're right on target with that. Think about it as you're discovering something about yourself that the whole world is telling you is bad, is wrong, is sinful, is all these negatives, and you're trying to figure out what it is and how it fits into your life, and all you're hearing is negative things. Well, you're going to want to run away from that. You're going to want to hide from that, and substance abuse is that way of hiding. My own personal story was, for the longest time, I didn't even know the word transgender, but I knew I was different. But everything I knew about it was negative. So I figured, all right, I'm going to wake up, go to work hard, go to softball fields, play softball, go to the bar and drink and do it all over again. And that left no time for my brain to dive into what is this thing about you. So it's a distraction. It's as you said, a coping mechanism to pull you away from what you really need to do is face it and figure out how this fits into your life and how to make it a positive. That's the mental health aspect and why mental health interventions are important, so you can talk these things through and develop those good coping skills, mindfulness, and make this a positive part of your whole life, your whole identity. And too often, again, people not in they think this is everything. They think that I identify as trans and I don't identify as anything else, and that's not the case. But a lot of youth see that and they think that needs to be the primary identifier of who they are, and we just need to make it one equal cut of the pie, the identity pie. See, nice word, identity pie.
Yeah, because that could be so conflicting.
It's a heavy burden.
Yeah, this is the only way people are going to identify me, and I can't be artistic or I can't be intelligent. It's just this. I mean, that would be so hard to take on.
Well, think about the things that we all identified with as youth, in our teens and our 20s. I cringe. I'm glad my musical tastes have changed. But it's a time of growth and self-discovery. But there's so much pressure to identify a certain way within the LGBTQ plus community, and it's like you can never change from that, even though you really don't even understand half of those identities, and you don't have the life experiences to allow you to grow out of that. But people tag you with the identity that you pick at 13 or 14 or 15, and it can scare you into not picking anything. And then you're not being true and honest, and you're needing to hide those things, and then that's where more of the substance abuse conversation and the mental health conversation come in, is that there's a pressure to declare, and you can never change. Because if you change, that's a whole nother conversation. Then you're confused and you don't know. No. If you still identify the same way, you did when you were 13, then you're missing out on life. But those are the pressures to come out, to declare, and then hold to that. That's just not fair. And that's more of that root cause of they have to find some way to mask that to the world.
When we talk about substance use too, one of the things that I found very interesting when I was researching and through other conversations was that for such a long time, one of the safe places was bars and clubs. And so that kind of drew people within the community to go to these places. And then, of course, because you're there, you're going to drink, and it kind of creates this it can create the snowball effect. I think that we're on the cusp, and hopefully I'm correct in saying this, that we've had people recognize that as a problem and shift a bit. Like you mentioned, the non-alcoholic craft beers, that's great. An amazing way to get people to feel comfortable and enjoy something they might enjoy without utilizing alcohol. And then we also talked about that in our previous podcast. I can't recall. They do events where it's like no alcohol, but it's community open wide. And so, yeah, I mean, I just think that's a really important point. And maybe you could speak a little bit to that. Do you agree, disagree? You know, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I love sober space pop-ups. We have an organization in South Bend that has been kind of managing those, and they've been starting to pop up. See, pop up like that. And actually, this coming Thursday, we have an NA, a non-alcoholic craft brew tasting night at the Treehouse. So people can take small samples, get introduced, find out they taste really good. And I've had people that I've introduced them to say, I think I can drink this some of the time. Well, that some of the time means there's a chance that one less drunk driver might be on the road. So another way that we can save lives is to teach people to, be smarter in the way they drink. Social drinking is not a bad thing. Drinking for coping and other reasons is a bad thing. But why not enjoy a cold beer after cutting the grass and not have to worry about whether you had too many of those beers? Because someone might call and say, hey, can you give me a ride to the hospital because I cut my finger? And you're like, oh, yeah, I've only had a couple. That's where we run into the problems. So if we can teach somebody to drink, NA beers 25% of the time, 50% of the time, and then there's a chance that we're just going to save one life with one less drunk driver out there. So these are all part of that, building your coping skills and finding avenues to have fun. And bars are synonymous with gay culture and have been for forever. One of the bars in South Bend, I said, if you start stocking good non-alcoholic beers, you're probably going to get some more people coming into your space. Because a lot of people are, especially as you get older, you're not looking for a party all the time. You know what we need? We need an NA cheers, an NA craft beer cheers, where people can just come, congregate, hang out, make bad jokes, and go home sober. That's the kind of bar scene I think some people are looking for. The dancing and the music and the party and the drag shows, absolutely a necessity, but they don't have to be wrapped around getting drunk and doing it.
So you mentioned that you're offering this at the Treehouse, and I just wanted to kind of circle back to the point that this the Treehouse just opened June 2nd was your ribbon cutting ceremony, correct?
That was our ribbon cutting, but we've been open since March 31st.
Okay, so you guys have had a little time. How are things going? Anything that's like, you want to share about it? Any good things since the ribbon cutting? Any bumps in the road?
We have been getting fantastic feedback from the community. Now, we're not getting dozens and dozens of people there every night. But see, our success really was opening the space. And it works as a community resource center and a workspace. So people drop in, they bring their computers, and they hang out. But they do that without judgment, without fear of somebody in there, because there's a lot of different identities in the space. In the short time that we've been open, it's just a handful of days when we've had no visitors, which is a great thing. And the more that we partner with other groups in the community, more people will become aware of the space. And it's common to hear someone say, wow, I'm going to bring my computer next time and I can get my work done or my studies done or my application for grad school done. And that's the kind of space we want, where, it's open to all, but inclusive across the board. When you open a new space, you wonder about sustainability and whether the community will come and support, to make sure that we can keep it open. Because a trans or gender identity specific resource center is a rare center in the whole country. I think I mentioned last time there may be less than 10 that are not university based in the whole country. So to have that is something the community needs to realize and look at how they want to use the space. It wasn't built for us. It wasn't built for trees. It was built for the community. And they're starting to show that. We have a community puzzle table that gets probably the most interest when people come in. I've seen a lot of people not get work done because they're at the puzzle table try to do the puzzles. So it's just fun things like that. And so in the plan to open the treehouse, my development hat, I needed to get at least 18 of the first 24 months of rent covered. And we hit that goal in 3 weeks.
Wow.
From when I went out looking.
Wow.
Since then, we have been honored with a donation that will keep us open until 2028.
Wow.
It is amazing.
Yes.
It is amazing. So it takes a lot of the pressure off of working hard just to pay the rent. Yeah. Now we can really impact the community and expand our services and increase our open hours through volunteers and maybe even hiring an executive director someday. But gifts like that are few and far between, and as a small nonprofit, that just takes us up to a new level. And the treehouse should become a fixture throughout all of northern Indiana, Southwest Michigan, because there isn't a center like that, anywhere.
That is huge news. 2028, that's a good chunk of time under your belt.
That is a good chunk of time.
Yeah. Then you guys will have a well-established spot in the community, and hopefully from there you'll just be able to keep going because you'll have so much time to build it. Because that's one of the hardest things, I think, right, is once you get known, then keeping it going and getting enough time in, for people to recognize who you are and realize the asset that you bring. And that really helps.
And community partners want to connect with, places and spaces and organizations that are going to be around a while. Mm-hmm. They don't want to make an investment and then 2 years later, that investment is lost and gone. So the fact that we're going to be here for at least that long should entice some partnerships to come forward to say, yeah, all right, we see you have sustainability, you have, a solid foundation. How can we backfill that? What can we do to fill 2028 to 2029? And then find other partners and just keep building on the back. I'm having these images of Legos in my head where we just keep adding bricks to the back, and that's, from a fundraising standpoint, when you're fundraising your 5 and 6 year out, that's a wonderful place to be. It doesn't happen like that. We're very fortunate and honored to get that gift.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yes, and I feel like that it doesn't happen as often as we would like, and it does. It adds that burden. If every organization could have some sort of guaranteed donor or donation, it would help the longevity, and it also help focus on your mission, and the goal, and that's what we need in the community. And people, I feel, there's nothing in our community for people. Well, we don't have everything, so it kind of requires everyone, or people who are invested in it to, say, okay, here, I'm going to help you guys get on your feet and stay on your feet for a while. And there is a place in Chesterton that is a recovery type of it's not a cafe, but it's a recovery community, and people, in the local town, they wanted to help. And so, they saw value in it, and in a space that is, a safe place for people. There's health and wellness going on. There's different recovery 12-step type of happenings there. So I think when communities see that, it's really just a huge blessing to have, donations and things to waive fees so that people don't have to pay a membership. That's huge also.
But that goes back to, in our case, the stigma. We need to create and make the community understand the positive effect that our treehouse is going to have on the community, so they buy into it, and then they want to support it financially, and that's where a lot of communities aren't, and a lot of the conversation around trans and gender diverse people is that people don't know the positives to that. And so part of our education effort is to show where, mental health agencies and the city itself should be supporting the treehouse, because it's going to help the community on the bigger scale, because it's going to make people feel more included in part of the community. And they may want to be part of civic organizations. They might want to run for mayor someday. And right now, we're not at that point where, trans and non-binary people feel that they can stand up, proudly as themselves in front of a public forum without just getting, a lot of stuff heaped on them. Mm-hmm. So, that's part of the work of trans visibility, is to showing that, that it's a positive, not a negative for the community, and the community needs to come and support that.
Yeah. So I know that you speak to groups through the trans visibility. I'm sorry, correct me here, because I'm not exactly sure. Is that like a business, or is that just like a group, or is that
trans visibility?
Yeah,
that's a hashtag.
Okay, okay.
But it's a powerful message to, the impact that someone standing up and being visible as their true, authentic self has, not only for that person but for the community as well. So it's a hashtag.
Okay, well, that's perfect.
But it falls under our, the hopeful outcomes of education and resource building, is that communities will allow for more trans visibility in their community without pushback or negative repercussions.
So do you, if somebody wants to have you come and speak to a group, because I know that you did that, Kaitlyn mentioned you did that here in Valparaiso, and obviously you've been on our show now, and I'm sure there's so many things that you have done that we just don't even know about. But if somebody's like, yeah, I really want to have somebody come in and speak about this to, say, my workers or city people or whoever, they want to help educate, they want to ally in that way. How do they reach you? And are you the right person? Do you want them to reach somebody else from the treehouse, or what's your thought? Can we direct our listeners in that way?
Yeah. I am the right person to contact, and you can email me at info@webetrees.org, and that's info at webetrees.org. And we have a training module. It's 5 parts, and 4 parts are universal for all organizations and agencies and businesses, and the 5th part is created for the specific, client and their audience. So we have done and have, already training that has been vetted for foster care agencies, healthcare workers, educators, general business, support organizations, and we are certified through the Indiana State Libraries to give out library education credits for our library training that we do. And we recently did one about a month and a half ago at East Chicago Public Libraries for their staff. And so, this has been built really well, and agencies all over the Midwest have been asking us to do this, and have found it, all the responses have been, really positive. So we can build it for what what you're looking for. It's ultimately, it's not the outcomes that we want to see from the organization. It's the outcomes from leadership they want to see, and we can make that happen through, what their need is. I mean, if we're training people to our expectations, then how do we know if they're really getting anything out of it? We need to tailor it so it works within the walls of their organization.
I appreciate that perspective because, sometimes we have like a plan going in, and if we don't know what that group needs to learn or to understand, then we could miss the mark completely.
Well, it kind of follows, the golden rule or the other golden rule is treat people how you want to be treated, but really you want to treat people how they want to be treated, because they may not want to be treated the same way that you treat yourself. So we can do training, or we can do training that's tailored to their needs so that they get the best outcomes for the time and expense.
Awesome. And then you said that you do this all over the Midwest, so that's pretty far reaching.
Yeah. Well, in addition to the Treehouse, we're really built as a mobile education organization. And so I travel, pre-pandemic, I was averaging 12,000 to 13,000 miles a year, engaging communities and organizations and doing work. I'll hop in the car and go. I'll have this conversation with anybody, anywhere, anytime, because the conversation needs to happen.
Yeah.
So, I think that's really important to just have someone willing to just having that willingness, because willingness without any barriers. You're willing to travel. You'll talk to anyone, and it's a congruent message. I understand that tailoring the training to certain groups and organizations so that it's most beneficial to them, but your message has always been the same, and I appreciate that. And I think that that's really what people need. People need consistency so that they can understand, because it's a learning curve. And I just think if people from all different areas of interest, like, just had that same passion and didn't have limitations or didn't limit themselves, we could, spread a lot, of different messages further, if no matter what it is, if it's mental health, if it's addictions, being willing to just educate anytime, any place, so that people can learn. I think it's great to have someone like you.
Well, the best outcomes from training are always to not just metaphorically meet people where they're at, but physically meet people where they're at. And when you can do a training, and this could be a elephant in the room kind of topic for some people. When you can do it in their own space, they're going to feel a little more comfortable and more apt to maybe listen and learn a little bit. If you force them to go somewhere, they're not going to be invested in it. So doing it within the walls of the organization helps, the outcomes for what we're trying to do. Because this can be a tough conversation, and there's going to be people who are going to push back for personal beliefs. But when an organization or a company says, yeah, you're going to go through this training, and you're at your workplace, people are going to go rather than, saying, hey, yeah, you got to go down to Indianapolis and do this training, where people are going to be more concerned about having to go on the road and stay in a hotel or, So we want to make it as comfortable a setting as possible, so people have the best opportunity to learn and listen.
I think that's smart. I like that. I like that concept because I think you're giving less barriers. Less barriers keeps people more open. I want to go ahead and make sure that we kind of address the fact that we are coming to an end here pretty soon. So is there anything else before we end the show that we want to impart on our listeners, have them kind of a takeaway, anything like that we really feel is important to kind of bring us home in this last few minutes?
Sure. Happy Pride.
Yeah.
It is Pride Month, but really, Pride is all year round. And we shouldn't just think about supporting in June, as 1 month a year. And people in the community can support all the time, whether that's, volunteering, helping with, any special skills they might have, financially, or just showing signs of support, with rainbow ribbon or a trans flag or something, so that another community member who may be not sure if their community will, support them, and help them move forward in accepting themselves. That isn't just 1 month and then 11 months of not doing anything, but it really is a year-round effort to show that support. And there's no reason that you cannot do trans and pride-related events and fundraisers and campaigns every month of the year, because sustainability says you got to work hard for 12 months. But just, happy Pride, celebrate, but know that it's continues, and it will continue for a long time until communities, start to come around and being more inclusive.
Thank you for that. Yeah, great. Well said. It's not about 1 month out of the year, when we're supporting and allying and, trying to build those resources for the community. It's all year round. So thank you for that. So I guess we'll go ahead and end the episode here. I think this feels like a really natural place to kind of to end it and to let our listeners kind of take this in. If you have any questions as a listener and you want this training, make sure to reach out to Meghan. Kaitlyn, I know you wrote down that.
Yes.
Can you
the email to reach Meghan is info@webetrees.org. So info at webetrees.org.
All right. Well, thank you for listening today. And thank you so much, Meghan, for joining us and coming on again.
Always glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.